cultural immersion project is on the Latin American culture. I had the opportunity to interview a young 30-year-old Latin American woman named Ariana Trujillo. Ariana is a second-generation immigrant from Zacatecas, Mexico. Ariana has shared many positive values about the Latin American culture that she cherishes. For instance, Ariana values how the Latin American culture is collectivistic in nature and that every member in the family is treated and valued as equals and given the same level of respect. Ariana further elaborated by saying it is important to look out for one another as well as take care of our people. She went on to say that there are no homeless people in her hometown because they take care of their own people, meaning that no one goes hungry or without shelter. Ariana also values how the collectivistic nature encourages the group to support one another versus focusing on individual gain. Ariana shared that she still practices and cherishes certain Latin ceremonies, traveling home often to be able to celebrate with her family members and community, such as traditional Latin American marriages, death, Day of the Dead, and birthdays. Ariana additionally shared how her group membership is important to her everyday to-day life. By being able to listen to Ariana's personal perspective as a Latin American woman living in the US, I was able to learn how she experiences challenges and opportunities as a minority member. For instance, Ariana shared how she feels she has gained more opportunities compared to other Latin American women because she does speak English and Spanish fluently. She explained this helps her in her career because she is able to understand and communicate with individuals from the United States as well as other Latin Americans who speak Spanish as their first language. She additionally explained how she has gained opportunities to advance in her career field because she has received an education in the United States. She currently is working on her master's in counseling. Ariana also stated that not being a part of the dominant group also makes it easier to connect to others and hold a connection to diversity. She explained how she feels that her cultural membership allows her to be able to be supportive and relate and bond to working with clients who are also Latin American, as well as others who are from other minority groups. Ariana explained that the Catholic religion is important to her and remains the belief system that her family practices. However, she distanced herself from this belief system years ago. She explained there will always be certain elements of the religion that are important to her, such as rosary and prayer beads that are considered sacred objects of protection. Ariana now practices Buddhism. Ariana additionally shared negative aspects of the Latin American culture that she feels affects her identity as a Latin American woman. For instance, gender roles have been ingrained into the Catholic belief system that encourage certain gender roles to continue, such as the term machismo, which distinguishes a man's level of masculinity. For instance, bravery and strength in the Latin culture. Ariana expressed how she thinks this leaves the role of women as submissive, leaving men in power and further continuing traditional gender roles. She explained how this is different from the Latin American culture in the United States because of the feminist stance that encourages women to be strong and independent and equals to men. Ariana explained her cultural identity of being a Latin woman affects her everyday life. For instance, she explained how living in a predominantly white city in the US sometimes makes her feel like she does not fit in. Ariana stated, "I have struggled with a feeling of displacement because I was born in the US, but being a minority creates a feeling of displacement because no one relates to my language and heritage. When I visit Mexico, sometimes I also feel like the odd one out because I'm looked at as an outsider. I ask myself, do I belong anywhere?" Having the opportunity to interview Ariana gave me a great insight into her personal perspective on the Latin American culture and her group membership and her impact on her role as a Latin American woman in the United States. I was able to get a clear depiction of her life and experiences being a Latin American woman in the United States. My cultural immersion event that I chose to conduct was the Natural Mind Drama Center. I chose the Natural Drama Center because Ariana practices Buddhism. This cultural immersion event gave me an insight into Ariana's belief and value system that impacts her outer reality. This experience gave me insight on how a traditional Vajrayana Buddhist practice is commenced. During the practice, I was able to observe and obtain new awarenesses, such as how it is the human nature to project thoughts, opinions based around what we have learned in the past. During the practice, there was a meditation, and it was very eye-opening because everyone in the room meditated with their eyes open. Later on, the instructor explained that the importance of meditating with your eyes open allowed you to remain present and aware. For instance, these thoughts that is in our human nature to project is something that in the meditation the individual practicing is able to become aware of and decide to give it power or to let it fade away. Living in the US, I think it is common for people to remain closed-minded and reject the beliefs of others without even a second thought. This is important to reflect on as a counselor because clients will have different beliefs and values that are different from my own. However, as a counselor, it is important to remain non-judgmental and hold compassion and awareness to be able to learn from these new beliefs and values that the client will hold. I also felt that this experience was very beneficial because it helps me understand how old beliefs, by holding on to old beliefs, we are unable to be receptive to a new message, lesson, or alternative belief from our own. I think this is important because when we work with clients, we're learning not only about our client and how to help our client and their cultural group, but also how to grow as an individual and grow as a counselor to be able to make a more impactful impact on more different diverse populations. This photo is of the drama center where everyone was faced forward, devoting their attention to the Buddha. There are 7 offering bowls in the front of the Buddha, which initiate his teachings. Around the room, there were additional tapestries of the Buddhists that were beautiful, as each one had its own meaning behind the different symbolisms within the tapestries. After conducting my interview and attending my cultural immersion event, I was able to reflect on what I had learned from my personal interview and what I had learned inside the class, such as how within the Latin American culture, individuals are still struggle with oppression, racism, discrimination, as well as how beautiful the culture is. Being able to listen to Ariana's personal perspective on the Latin American culture helped me create a new perspective and lens on the importance and the uniqueness of the Latin American culture. Through this experience, I was also able to explore and challenge my biases and assumptions previously held beliefs about the Latin American culture. For instance, I used to hold the bias and assumptions that Latin Americans lack education and struggle with communication because of their thick accent or because the language is different from how to pronounce words in the English language versus Spanish. Additionally, I held biases and assumptions that most individuals from the Latin American culture were immigrants or residing in the United States as illegals. Lastly, I held assumptions that many Latin Americans held laborious jobs such as maids and gardeners. In the future, I hope to advocate for clients from the Latin American culture within institutional universities, community groups, and programs, and public policies by being able to encourage the development of integrating new policies that create equality and opportunity for advancement within career fields and educational institutions and community centers. This assignment has impacted me personally and professionally because it has allowed me to realize how important it is to focus on the individual's story versus listening to societal opinions and views. It is important to listen to our clients to be able to obtain true and actual facts. By being able to help one person, we are able to learn more about that culture and understand that each individual's story and experiences will vary. It is important to hold the same amount of level of respect and compassion for each individual. Thank you. This is Sammy Faye.